Welcome back to the channel to celebrate us finally finishing Sabatiers and Ember in the Ashes series. For this week, we will be ranking the Ember in the Ashes series. If you guys are new to this channel and have not seen one of my ranking the videos, or if you have forgotten how we structure these videos, we will be going through each book in whatever series we have just finished. I will be ranking them as far as my least favorite book of whatever series we finished. Again, this list is completely subjective and my opinion on each book and where it stands as far as the series itself. But if you guys have your own thoughts on each of these books and your own ranking of where these books should go, feel more than free to share it down in the comments. As we go through and review each book, I will put a link to that book's specific video up in the cards so you guys can go and rewatch that video if you guys want to get my more in-depth thoughts. Just because I've made full-length videos for each of these books, I'm not going to spend too much time on my thoughts. If you guys want my more in-depth thoughts, rewatch that book's specific video. With all that out of the way, let's get to the list with number 4. Taking the number 4 spot is going to be the first book of the series, An Ember in the Ashes. Overall, like I said in my review video for An Ember in the Ashes, I really like this book as the start of the entire series. I think Sabatier does a really good job setting up a really interesting world with the conflict between the scholars and the Martial Empire. I really like the world that she sets up. There's a lot of lore and stuff that I really enjoy, particularly when we get to Nightbringer and the augurs and all that. Plus, I really enjoy Elias and what Sabatier did with Elias and his character, with him being torn between his mission to possibly become the next emperor of the Martial Empire and his grandfather's expectation for him to compete in this tournament to become the emperor, but the other side of him wanting to get away from the life of a mask and everything that represents, all of the bloodshed and the darkness that lives within him because of his mask training. I think Sabatier did a really good job at really having Elias become sympathetic to us, because we're seeing that he is a good person. He's just in a very bad situation that he really doesn't want to be in, and he's working to get out of, but he's got this dual loyalty between his grandfather and loyalty to his empire and loyalty to himself and what he personally wants. And I really enjoy that arc of his character. This book really is a solid starting point. I think Sabatier did an awesome job with it, but there is one thing that I did mention in the video that kind of is the elephant in the room for this book. If you have watched my An Ember in the Ashes video, you know that I don't exactly love Elia as a character. That's mainly because I don't think there's too much to latch onto with her character, because her character is very much a straightforward character where she wants to take down the Martial Empire and free the scholars from their tyranny, and that in and of itself isn't a bad arc, but there kind of needs to be something deeper, for me personally at least, to get latched onto. Then I think I wouldn't be harping on her as much and I could get more invested into her story. Other than Laya not being that interesting of a character, at least to me personally, I really do think An Ember in the Ashes serves as a really good introduction book to the world that Sabatier wrote for this story. Elias was a really good character with a super sympathetic story, and I think this was a really good starting point to a series that has a lot of promise, and I think did live up to a lot of that promise as it continued. Taking the number 3 spot is going to be A Torch Against the Night. This is a solid sequel to the first book. Like I said in my video reviewing this book, it continues a lot of what I enjoyed about the first book, mainly Elias and his fight to push away his past as a mask and get away from it and form himself into someone who is better and trying to find himself outside of his identity as the mask. So Elias was also a really good character, and you'll probably hear this a lot, but he is probably my favorite character of all the main characters we're following in this. He's definitely the most interesting to me. But what really sets Elias apart in this book is that he is drifting in and out of the waiting place, and while he's in the waiting place, he is forced to confront a lot of what he did as a mask, and that really really pushes his character development forward quite a bit, because now he's directly having to face what he did in book 1 and before that as his mask training continued. So there was a lot of really good character development for Elias in A Torch Against the Night, and it just solidified why he is my favorite character for the entire series. Another really cool part about this book was that we finally got to see Helene's point of view for the story, and I really enjoyed this part too, because Helene is actually going through a lot of the same things that Elias is going through as far as her loyalty. Unlike Elias, it's not her loyalty between wanting to be free of the mask and his past. For Helene, it's a lot more of her responsibility as the new blood strike to Marcus, but also wanting to keep her family safe. So that really drives her forward, and there's a lot of emotional conflict, as well as the fact that she is now hunting Elias, her best friend. Helene, again, did have a really cool emotional arc in this book, where she is torn between her loyalty to Marcus as the blood strike and her friendship to Elias. So Helene definitely was really needed and a really cool addition to the entire story. But the big thing that puts this book in particular above An Ember in the Ashes is the fact that we get this awesome reveal involving the Nightbringer. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who hasn't watched that video or hasn't read the series, but I love the way Sabatier does the Nightbringer reveal at the end of this book. It is so good, and even when I was reading the book, I didn't even see it coming. Like, it was such a well done plot twist at the very end of the book that it was definitely the highlight of the book. When you find out the identity of the Nightbringer, it is such a shock that it just makes the entire book even better. And I absolutely love the ending of A Torch Against the Night, and it definitely is better than An Ember in the Ashes, but I can't really justify putting A Torch Against the Night above the other two books in this list. Number 3 spot is going to be A Sky Beyond the Storm. Getting our obligatory Elias praise out of the way, I think this was definitely the best book for Elias, because this was mainly what his arc has entirely been leading up to, where he has now fully embraced becoming the soul catcher and accepting that role, but he's also grappling with his desire to still be connected to humanity and his role as the soul catcher. The two conflicts between Elias really make his character so great, and I really did enjoy Elias's entire arc between all 4 books. Reason I am putting Sky Beyond the Storm so high is that this, I think, was an epic conclusion to the entire series. If you watched my last book review, which was the review for Sky Beyond the Storm, you know I absolutely love the conclusion of this book, because Sabatier does an awesome job connecting everything together in a super satisfying way. All the characters' epilogue chapters are awesome because they end in places that make sense for their characters specifically, and none of them feel completely out of nowhere. All of them feel so well earned. The endings feel super satisfying for characters that I personally have grown pretty attached to and have enjoyed following. So I really love how Sabatier was able to conclude all their stories very effectively and very satisfying. Along the same lines, there are several lines that are spoken mainly in book 1 and 2 that come back and are key parts of this book, and I think that was really good payoff. So this book, as the conclusion to the series, is so well done, and that is why it takes the number 3 spot, but I cannot personally put it over the 4th book we're going to discuss next in the list. The only thing I mentioned in my video that drags this book down is the final battle between everyone and the Nightbringer. It's a lot shorter than it should have been. Like I said in that video, I feel like if Sabatier had extended the ending, I would love this book a lot more. As it is, I do enjoy this book as the conclusion. I just think if Sabatier had spent a little more time drawing out the final battle, that this book would have been awesome. But as it is still really good. I just think if the final battle was a little longer, it would have been better. Taking the number 1 spot, as you could probably tell, is going to be A Reaper at the Gates. Praise for Elias, get that out of the way early. He continued to be a really good character when he is studying with Shiva to become the Nightbringer. I really enjoyed that part of his arc. I think his continuing struggle between accepting his responsibility as the new soul catcher and his want to stay with humanity was very well. Again, I go into a lot more detail about this in my video, so I'm gonna end that there. Surprisingly, now that I've thought about it, I really liked Helene's arc in this book, because her arc in this book is a lot more interesting. In this book, she is playing 3D chess against Karis Vituria. Karis has now started her endgame takeover, and it is up to Helene to protect her family and Marcus and his empire from being taken over by Karis. And now that I've really thought about that arc, I think it's grown on me. When I originally did the video, I said that I didn't like Helene's arc in the book as much as I liked it in A Torch Against the Night, but now that I've thought about it in my head, I realized, yeah, this was a really good arc. It might not have been as emotionally impactful as her arc in book 2, but it still showed off Helene as a really capable character as she's politically maneuvering against all of the forces set against her and Marcus. So I really do think that I might have jumped the gun at saying Helene's arc in A Torch Against the Night was better than this. Now that I've thought about it, I've come around on it, and I think both arcs are really good and really well needed. I just think I found a new appreciation for Helene's arc in this book now that I've had time to really think about that in preparation for this video. Overall, I think A Reaper at the Gates is the book maybe where all of the characters are written most effectively, because in A Reaper at the Gates, we got a lot of what I wanted from Elias in A Torch Against the Night, where he's in the waiting place learning about it. I wanted a lot of that in A Torch Against the Night, but we finally got it in A Reaper at the Gates, and Helene showed a really good strategic mind and a new aspect of her personality with her political maneuvering. Those two characters, I think, were really effectively written. I still think Elias is most effective written in the finale, but I think now that I've had a chance to think about it, I think Helene is most effectively written in this book. The main reason I'm putting A Reaper at the Gates above A Sky Beyond the Storm is because I think A Reaper at the Gates is the book where all three of them are most effectively written. I still enjoy Sky Beyond the Storm as the ending of the series overall, but I think A Reaper at the Gates was a better book overall. Not by a whole lot, but I still think it edges A Sky Beyond the Storm out just by a bit. You know, that's just my opinion. And if you guys think differently, let me know down in the comments. This has been my ranking of all of Sabatiers and Ember in the Ashes books. If you guys want to leave your own rankings down in the comments, feel more than free to do so. Also, down in the comments, if you guys have books you want me to do reviews on in the future, feel more than free to leave those down there. If you guys want to follow me on social media, my Instagram is rmbookreviews, Twitter is rmbookreviews as well, same with my TikTok and my Facebook. I will leave everything linked down in the comments if you guys want to go and follow that. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please do not forget, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you do not miss a video. That is going to be it for me for this week. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Don't forget, keep on reading.